Lake Vattern is a massive lake in the middle of Sweden, and the Vatternrundan is the annual quest to cycle all the way around the lake in one go, a distance of 315 kilometres. The bike ride is the most popular on the planet, with nearly 20,000 people taking on the challenge every year. I have never cycled that far in one day before, so I didn't really know if I would make it round in one piece. But being here with a big group of friends from Charlottesville Cycling Club meant that whatever happened, we would have a good time trying. The ride starts and ends in Motala on the northeastern shores of the lake, and riders set off every couple of minutes from 7:30 p.m. on Friday night, which was 12th of June this year in 2026, all the way through to late on Saturday morning. Our allotted start time of 4:06 a.m. was alarmingly early, especially given that Sweden is 1 hour ahead of the UK. So, to give ourselves a fighting chance of not being totally knackered before we even started, we arrived in Sweden on Thursday evening, staying together in a rather fabulous and beautiful family home just 3 kilometres from the start. The owners put their house on Airbnb just once a year for this event, and for us it was the perfect base for us to hang out, prepare our bikes, and eat hearty amounts of pasta the night before. We also went for a bit of a leg-loosening ride on Friday to check we'd put our bikes back together correctly and to make the most of the fact the sun was shining. Everything about Sweden is lush, clean, beautiful and green. The spotless, potholeless roads are fringed with charming red and white wooden houses and swathes of purple and pink salvia. We stopped for a coffee by the lake in Motala and spotted the GCN crew having lunch at the same restaurant. They were planning to ride the course in under 8 hours, which frankly sounded much less fun than my own plan to stop at every one of the 9 available food stops. The coffee drinkers were happy, but Matt and I had to share a single herbal tea bag the waitress found at the back of a cupboard after a lengthy search. Adrenaline and excitement took the sting out of the 3 a.m. alarm on Saturday, and after some difficult clothing choices we were ready to go. The forecast was for on-off rain throughout the day, with a fairly consistent temperature ranging from 11 to 14 degrees, which hovers annoyingly right around my personal cut-off for wearing shorts. In the end I went with winter tights and had no regrets about that, but this is definitely a personal choice.
Have a lovely day, boys and girls. Have fun. Here we go. Good luck. Thank you.
I've got a neutralised start.
We set off in the drizzle, following a motorbike escort to the fringes of the town before being let loose on the open roads. The skies were basically as bright as they are in the UK at midday in February, so it certainly didn't feel like 4 o'clock in the morning. The going was smooth and we settled into a steady rhythm. Early on, a fast group swished by and sucked up a couple of our more enthusiastic riders, but I had decided I'd pace myself and not go berserk with over 300 kilometres still to go. The event is not a closed road one, but there was so little traffic that it really didn't matter. I guess there wouldn't be that much traffic at this ungodly hour, but actually there never really was much traffic for the whole ride. All the major junctions were manned by marshals who gave priority to bikes over cars, and as we were travelling clockwise on the right-hand side of the road, there were no awkward junctions. The quality of the roads is extraordinarily good. I suppose they don't get the same pounding as British roads because there are a lot fewer people here, and they must be built to withstand wider swings in temperature, so they don't break out in a rash of potholes after every cold snap. I don't know what they put in them, but the tarmac has sparkly bits in it that look a lot like bits of glass, so we all had puncture anxiety before we realised that we weren't actually riding across smashed bottles. The first stop in Oddershog meant the first of at least a dozen bread rolls, and the taste of the famed blueberry soup, a warm and fruity treat which might work quite well for papier-mâché. I enjoyed it, but decided it was a bit too gelatinous to risk drinking at every one of the 9 upcoming food stops, because there was no way of knowing how my gut might respond to that. Our own planning for this adventure started nearly a whole year earlier, when our club Vatternrundan WhatsApp group was set up by Will, who skillfully navigated the multi-step registration process, managed the various group polls to pin down our preferred start time, found and booked the accommodation, and got us all invested and committed by gently prodding us to get on and book flights. I'm very grateful to the hard work he put into this thankless task that is basically herding cats and generally making everything happen. Thank you, Will. Once our logistics were all pinned down, I decided a bit of preparation was needed for this epic. So back in October in 2025, I set up a series of club rides on a Wednesday, otherwise known as the midweek shirkers, for those who are either part-timers like me, retired, or just generally shirking. We used the rides all the way through the winter for gentle Zone 2 outings of at least 100 kilometres to the various tea rooms of Surrey and Sussex, all in the name of getting our bodies and minds used to being on a bike all day. The organisation of the Vatternrundan event itself is excellent. They've been doing this since 1966, and I would say they've got the logistics totally nailed down. Because the riders are set off over the course of 16 hours, it never feels crowded, and they have successfully worked out exactly how many meatballs and bread rolls they need. I reckon at least 250,000 of each. The volunteers marshalling the roads and serving food at all the stops are chirpy and welcoming, and lots of the residents sit by the side of the road all day cheering people on. Jonkoping, apologies for the pronunciation, I have no idea how it should be pronounced, was the eagerly anticipated meatball stop. We'd been riding for a good 4 hours and were ready for something more substantial than another bread roll, even though it was still only 9 o'clock in the morning.
That was one of the best meatballs I think I've ever had. Meatballs and mash. It really doesn't get any better than that. For breakfast. Yeah, for breakfast. That's what I said.
Re-energised by meatballs, we headed into the second third of the ride, turning north, having reached the southern tip of the lake. This meant what had been a significant headwind, at least for the riders I was hiding behind, turned into a welcome solid tailwind. We sailed north towards Fagerholt, and the sky cleared just enough for me to peel off my precious shake-dry raincoat. The cut-off time of 24 hours for completing the ride means the event is accessible to the widest possible range of cyclists, and some of the slower riders, who set off on Friday evening, were spotted emerging from the bushes with sleeping bags at various points during the day. The event was established by a local sports doctor, Sten Otto Liljedal, sorry for the pronunciation, and bike shop owner Ewart Rydell, who wanted to study the health effects of long-distance cycling. After having a go themselves in 1964, setting a trial event in 1965, they launched the first official ride in 1966. The first event was completed by 334 riders, one of whom was the legendary Stig Johansson, who unbelievably has completed the ride every single year since. We passed him ourselves. He's easy to spot in his bright red woolly hat. Chapeau to Stig. The ride is not technically a race, and the spirit is not all that competitive. It's a pretty laid-back affair and largely attended by recreational riders from Scandinavian countries. Out of the 17,200 starters this year, only 222 were from the UK. Having said that, there are lots of fast groups who fly by in perfectly matching kit, aiming to complete the ride in under 9 or even under 8 hours. Some of them have a motorbike ahead of them and their own food stops set up in laybys. The event caters for these groups differently. They start late on Saturday morning to reduce the number of people they need to overtake, and they aren't allowed to use the regular bread roll and blueberry soup stops. On the subject of food, which was a major feature of my ride strategy, our next eagerly awaited stop was Hjo, where lasagna was being served. Like the meatballs, the strategic timing of this hearty meal was spot on and came just after the psychologically all-important halfway mark. By now I'd clocked up at least 9 bread rolls, and my palate was ready for something different. Anything different. By now, our original group of 18 had splintered a bit, and I found myself with a core group of 8 riders who were all happy to make the most of all the amenities on offer and enjoy the ride. It was just as well that no one got antsy about leaving the food stops quickly, because as a woman, there is always going to be a certain amount of time standing in a queue for a portaloo. The Hjo lasagna revived my weary legs, and bracing myself for the very long way we still had to go, we set off for Karlsborg. One of the great things about this ride is that its profile is pretty pancake-like. If you're going to take on a 200-mile ride, then this is definitely the easiest way to do it. The whole ride has about 1,800 metres of elevation, spread out over 315 kilometres, and with Garmin only registering one stretch as an actual climb. I was expecting this part of the ride to be the hardest, but the relatively short distances between food stops of around 40 kilometres meant we were never too far from a break. What's more, as the ride progressed, the stops got even closer together. This was just as well, given my overzealous hydration strategy and the subsequent need for a stand in a portaloo queue at every opportunity. On the subject of facilities, the organisers did a great job of making a vast number of these available at every stop, alongside porta urinals. I'll spare you a video of that, you'll just have to imagine it, which deal with the men's needs efficiently. Amazingly, the portaloos were without exception clean, continuously stocked with huge loo rolls and plentiful hand sanitizer, and generally as pleasant as they could possibly be. Karlsborg gave us the opportunity for lying spread-eagle and corpse-like on the grass in the sun for 10 minutes while digesting our 11th or 12th bread roll of the day. At this point, with just over 100 kilometres to go, I knew we'd all be able to finish the ride and do so smiling. I also felt smug enough to reflect on my successful 3-pronged strategy for not just surviving but for enjoying the ride. The first part of this strategy takes by far the most time and forward planning, and that is to get your body used to riding long distances on a bike. And the only way to do that is by riding long distances on a bike. Not as long as this, but regular 4 to 6 hour rides to build aerobic fitness and adapt your body for being in that position for that long. It helps to have a bike that fits well and a saddle padded shorts combo that's not going to give your undercarriage any grief. Given I love nothing more than a nice long gentle bike ride, this part was easy, and I've clocked up about 6,000 kilometres in the last 6 months. The second and third parts of the strategy apply on the day itself, and they are pacing and fueling. Both are essential. It's got to be zone 2 all the way, so no surging up hills or sprinting out of corners. Fueling is the hardest thing to get right. You have to eat a lot more than you think you need, both at stops and on the bike. That this has the biggest positive impact in combating fatigue is something I've only recently discovered, so I now never hold back on snacks on a mega ride like this. The organisers seem to understand this too, and the penultimate stop at Askersund had full-fat Pepsi on offer, which was the best pick-me-up a cyclist could wish for, especially when paired with one of Matt's amazing homemade flapjacks that magically appeared at this moment. I find towards the end of a long day in the saddle, my body just wants pure sugar, so after leaving that stop, I released the jelly babies I'd been saving into my top tube bag so I could munch them on the move. The caffeine and sugar injection, the thumping music and cheering locals all aligned perfectly to give us the beans to get up the one significant climb of the ride. After a final pit stop at 284 kilometres, we were on the home straight. With the end in sight, I felt an inexplicable burst of energy. Maybe it was something to do with the 12 bread rolls and family bag of jelly babies I'd worked my way through, in addition to the meatballs, mash and lasagna. The two young lads in our group shot off the front, and we all tried to chase them down over the final 30 kilometres, turning the closing stages of this incredible ride into something reminiscent of the road racing I've done in the past. Although it meant our group strung out a bit and we didn't quite cross the line together, it was an exhilarating end to a fantastic ride. It's amazing what your body can do when your mind is in the mood. We finished at about 6 p.m, having started at 4 a.m, with a moving time of around 11 hours and an average speed of around 30 kph. According to Strava, I burnt around 5,000 calories, and I'm confident that I replaced them all. Everyone in our group finished and did so in style. Someone even decided 315 kilometres wasn't quite enough and set off for a short loop to make it up to 400. Recovery involved no cycling at all, but watching braver souls frolicking in the frigid waters of Lake Vattern, as well as a lovely meal to round off our trip. If this ride is on your cycling bucket list, then I can thoroughly recommend it, especially with friends, and even more especially if one of those friends does a lot of the organising. Now all that's left to do is decide which cycling challenge we'll take on next. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you on my next cycling adventure.